Peace, family. It's your brother, Marc Lamont Hill. You're watching the Marc Lamont Hill official YouTube channel. We are here today to talk about this scandal that broke out a couple of months ago. Remember back in December when the whole world was buzzing about an alleged scandal with Bishop T.D. Jakes and Diddy. As you know, the month prior, in November, the settlement between Diddy and Cassie came out, and along with Cassie's lawsuit against Diddy, right before the settlement came a huge document with lots of stories, lots of allegations, lots of charges. I don't know what's true. I don't know what's not true, but what I do know is Diddy settled that lawsuit very quickly once the story broke. Within 24 hours, Diddy settled with Cassie for an undisclosed, but certainly large amount of money. And immediately after that, the floodgates opened up. Everybody was being charged with stuff. Everybody was being accused with stuff because the New York Survivors Act was basically ending. And so everybody who had a lawsuit that was beyond the statute of limitations was now able to, by the end of that month, file a lawsuit. They were able to hold people accountable for whatever harm happened to them. And so they went to the mattresses. But then in December, we got another story. We got a story that Diddy wasn't just connected to these people who we may not know. And he wasn't just connected to Cassie, who we of course did know, his longtime partner, but that Diddy was connected to Bishop T.D. Jakes, who up to that point we knew as Diddy's friend, as Diddy's mentor. We knew him as somebody who Diddy had a strong, positive, healthy relationship with. And so we were shocked. The news broke out on social media. The news in particular broke out on Twitter and TikTok and Instagram. But I think TikTok was the source of it. And it said that T.D. Jakes had been involved in all kinds of stuff with Diddy. I'm not going to repeat the allegations. I'm going to show you the source of all of it. And the reason why I'm doing this is because since December 21st, we haven't heard a peep. Allegations were coming from everywhere. Lawsuits were pending. Arrests were coming. Confessions were coming. All this stuff was supposed to happen. And 2 months later, we haven't heard anything. Now, let me be very clear. I'm not defending T.D. Jakes, and I'm not castigating T.D. Jakes. I have no position on T.D. Jakes or his life because I don't know T.D. Jakes' life. I know T.D. Jakes. I've never seen anything to make me think that he does harm to people. I've never seen anything to make me feel negative about T.D. Jakes, although I have critiques of him. I may have religious or theological critiques of him. I may have critiques of that Wells Fargo deal, which I think is a problematic neoliberal deal. I got stuff like that we could talk about. But as far as these allegations, I had no reason to think that T.D. Jakes was involved in anything troublesome. So when the news broke, not everybody, a lot of people were shocked, but everybody had something to say about it. And I want you all to pay careful attention to the allegations, because what I want to do today is not say, look, this proves T.D. Jakes was wrongfully charged, or this proves T.D. Jakes was an innocent victim. What this proves is that the internet and so-called online journalism, or what y'all call journalism, is not journalism. It's baseless, because 2 months later, we have no evidence that anything else has been substantiated. Nothing has been substantiated. All we have is the same allegations from 2 months ago that to date are still baseless. So what I want to do is break down and explain to y'all and show y'all exactly how we went from a non-story into a whole scandal that T.D. Jakes had to respond to, that he had to address, that he had to deny with absolutely no evidence. Again, could T.D. Jakes be guilty of something? Sure. Could T.D. Jakes be guilty of this? Perhaps. I have no idea. But what I do know is the whole world, our whole community, was engaged in a criticism and an analysis and determinations about T.D. Jakes with absolutely no basis in fact. And the problem with this is that this type of journalism and clout chasing, because that's what it is, leads to misinformation. It leads to disinformation. It doesn't just cause harm to people. it distributes our politics and our political ideas and our cultural norms, all in our values. All that stuff gets topsy-turvy when you put out information that is baseless, and we as consumers of information, consumers of journalism, believe that it's actually true. So let's look at this just for a second. I want y'all to look at this video that came out, because this is the source of it all. We're going to start there, and then I'm going to break this thing down for y'all. Look at this.
She has turned over evidence to the feds. Yes, to the feds. She has turned over videotapes, a USB drive, and Kim Porter's burner phone. Now, there is also an alleged email out saying a plethora of other things that include TD Jakes with Diddy. I'm gonna let y'all listen to it. I'm not finna say nothing else.
Says here, yo, bro, Cassie has turned over substantial amounts of evidence.
So let's start there. I hate that some of y'all Negroes learn the word allegedly, because now every blog, every gossip channel, everybody just says the word allegedly, and they think that allegedly is like some silver bullet that insulates you from harm or critique or accountability, even certainly legal accountability for spreading misinformation. So the sister says, let's just listen one more time.
Ain't nobody gonna catch me slipping. Anything, this is allegedly. Ain't nobody gonna catch me slipping. Okay?
Now, the whole idea behind saying allegedly is you don't want to get sued. If I have credible information from a source, I can say the source told me X. Let's say I'm talking to John, hypothetical person. John robbed a bank. My source comes to me as a journalist and says, yo, look, John robbed a bank. I can say, look, sources say that John robbed a bank. John gets charged with bank robbery later on down the line, let's say. I can say John is facing trial for his alleged bank robbery. Why am I saying alleged? Because he's being accused of something that hasn't been proven yet. So it's an allegation. There are allegations against John, right? Now, once he's convicted, I don't have to say his alleged bank robbery. I can say he was convicted of bank robbery, right? And he can't sue me. But if somebody comes to me and says, John is a serial killer, and I say, well, you know, John has to go to court for that serial killing he did, John can sue me because I'm spreading the logic and the narrative and the truth that John's a serial killer, even without evidence. And he can't sue me if he turns out to be a serial killer. But if he turns out not to be, or at least turns out not to be proven to be, he can then sue me. So the idea of allegedly is to insulate journalistic outlets in such a way that they can report that crimes have been committed or that crimes are being alleged, but that the person who is being accused of said crimes still have room to say, look, I didn't do it. Right. And that we're not convicting them in the court of public opinion. That's the idea behind allegedly. So when you become a journalist, I'll tell you, any job I've ever had where I had to report the news, they always make sure we have the word alleged or allegedly in the copy, in the writing of the script, so that we are not legally vulnerable. But you still have to have a good faith belief that something is true. You can't just say allegedly and everything goes away. You can't just say allegedly and it's a silver bullet that insulates you or magically takes away all responsibility. I can't just make up some shit and then say, oh, allegedly, Marc Lamont Hill, you know, is an arsonist. What? No, I can't do that. But that, so she says, y'all not gonna get me. And unfortunately, that y'all not gonna catch me slipping, that logic is what guides a lot of the online blogs now. Now, there's some great ones. I'm not throwing, any kind of aspersions against any particular blogs. I'm not talking about the big ones. A lot of times it'd be the small ones, the ones y'all never heard of, the people who are trying to get on YouTube or TikTok. They're trying to get the clicks. They're trying to get the eyeballs. So they'll just make something up and then say, well, allegedly, this happened. So let's go.
Okay. So allegedly, Cassie has turned over evidence to the feds. Yes, to the feds. She has turned over videotapes, a USB drive, and Kim Porter's burner phone. Now, there is also an alleged email out saying a plethora of other things that include TD Jakes with Diddy. I'm gonna let y'all listen to it. I'm not finna say nothing else.
That's here, Joe.
So here's what she does. Now, in a way that this is a response, this could be a responsible journalistic move to say, look, the allegations came, but they're not from me. There is a legitimate source of information, but it's not my source. I am person A reporting that person B got the news. So I'm not going to pretend that I got the news. I'm going to say, look, just listen to person B. They'll tell you the whole story because they have the sources. They have the evidence. So what she did was say, allegedly, Cassie went to the feds. Allegedly, Kim Porter had a burner phone. Allegedly, TD Jakes is implicated in all this stuff. That's what they said. So then she says, well, I'm not going to say nothing else. I'm going to send you to the real source. Just listen to this. So now, as a journalist, or just as a consumer of journalism, I'm expecting now to hear the source. I'm expecting to hear the evidence. Here's what we get.
Bro, Cassie has turned over substantial amounts of evidence to the feds. I'm told that after Cassie had a long conversation with blank, I have to protect this person. They're going through a lot right now. And her lawyers, she finally was convinced to give up the videotapes and audio recordings that contain footage of S parties and other private gatherings.
So he's saying, look, according to blank, and he's saying, like, I can't say my sources. That's totally reasonable journalistically. I can't say the source, but they're going through a lot. I can't say the person's name, but according to blank, someone has been convinced to turn in this stuff. Let's listen to that one more time. They're making an interesting sleight of hand that might go over your head if you're not paying attention as a viewer, that allows them to put more information into the universe that hasn't been proven.
After Cassie had a long conversation with blank, I have to protect this person. They're going through a lot right now. And her lawyers, she finally was convinced to give up the videotapes and audio recordings that
I am told, listen to what he said. I am told that after having a long conversation with blank, Cassie was convinced to do this thing, to go to the feds and submit all the information. So now this woman on TikTok, the woman you see right here at the top of your screen, is telling us that she heard from the guy we're listening to right now that this TD Jakes story happened. And then the guy we're listening to is saying that he was told that Cassie was convinced by somebody else to go to the feds. Think about this. So she heard from him who heard from somebody who heard from somebody, or that Cassie told somebody. So even her source is him, the dude we're listening to, and he doesn't have a source. He didn't talk to somebody who talked to Cassie. He's saying he talked to somebody who heard that Cassie talked to somebody. So now we're like 4 people down the line, and not one person we're hearing from has offered a shred of evidence. Not a shred of evidence. Again, I'm not here to vindicate TD. I know some of y'all gonna say, oh, he's part of the Illuminati. He's part of the underground connection of fame. First of all, I ain't that famous, so I ain't part of no network. I don't get invited to no parties. I don't want to. I'm good. My life's good. This isn't defending TD Jakes. This is simply saying that a whole story was made. This video, just to give y'all some context, got 14 million views on Twitter. I'm old. I still go to Twitter and Instagram. On TikTok, it got tens of millions of views when you look at all the different people who copied it and pasted it and reposted it. And so not one person, though, said they were there. Not one person said they talked to Cassie. Not one person said any of this. So now we're like 4 people down the line of a story that on its face probably doesn't make that much sense anyway, but let's keep listening.
That contain footage of S parties and other private gatherings that feature some pretty powerful and prominent people. And get this, she even gave up a burner phone and USBs that belong to Kim Porter with incriminating evidence against Diddy. I'm told that there are a slew of artists, politicians, and entertainers that are about to be exposed and arrested for H10. I'm paraphrasing there, okay? H10. I'm told that Cassie's husband played a significant role in getting Cassie to turn over the evidence. It's to my understanding that Cassie felt that by exposing the truth, it would also make her look like a filthy Moor. And I'm paraphrasing there because some of the videos she turned in, it shows her getting number one, okay, guys, I'm paraphrasing again, and committing more disgusting acts that she was forced to do.
So let's break this down, because none of this makes any sense. None of it. Now, again, I'm not saying that TD Jakes is innocent. I'm not saying TD Jakes is guilty. I'm not saying that Diddy is innocent, and I'm not saying that Diddy is guilty. You can watch the other videos on Diddy to get my opinion on that. And again, I know nothing about TD Jakes. What I can tell you is, again, this story doesn't make sense. So what happened then, after this story came out, is that we then began to take things that were not facts and presume they were facts, and then add another layer of information that doesn't seem like a leap if the foundation is truthful. In other words, this story begins with the premise that Cassie went to the feds, right? We know Cassie went to the feds, and we know she gave them this information. The debate is whether TD Jakes is actually on the hard drive. The debate is whether TD Jakes is actually implicated in the evidence that Cassie gave to the feds. Here's the problem. Cassie didn't go to the feds. There's no evidence, there's no reason, there's absolutely no reason to believe that Cassie went to the feds. None. But because that story was said matter-of-factly in these fake journalistic TikTok accounts, we begin from the premise that, well, again, Cassie went to the feds and she gave him the burner phone from Kim Porter. So, you know, it's not that much of a leap to think that famous friends will be on the videos, and he's a famous friend, so of course it makes sense. But none of the claims that this claim rests upon have been proven true either. First of all, why do we think Kim Porter had a burner phone? Is there any evidence that Kim Porter had a burner phone? Is there any mention of Kim Porter having a burner phone? Did Kim Porter ever say she had a burner phone? Did Diddy ever say Kim Porter had a burner phone? Did Kim Porter's friends say she had a burner phone on the record? I don't know of any of this. Did Cassie say she got a burner phone from Kim Porter? No. So there's no reason to believe that there even exists a burner phone in a hard drive. Very few people walk around with these smoking guns of evidence that are just sitting in a drawer like an episode of Scandal that then she gives to Diddy. Allegedly. Ain't that what you're supposed to say? And then they say, well, Cassie went to the feds. Okay, let's think about that. Cassie just signed a settlement with Diddy. If Cassie why would Diddy make a settlement with Cassie worth at least 8 figures, right? We know he ain't settled for $1 million, $2 million. My sources have a number. I'm not going to say the number, but let's just say I can guarantee you it was 8 figures. I can guarantee you it was 8 figures. That could be anywhere from 10 million to 99.999 million, right? I can guarantee you that. Why would Diddy sign a settlement that would still permit that would still permit Cassie to go to the feds with the information he was trying to keep quiet? The whole point of the settlement was so that both sides would be happy. She wanted a financial amount and he wanted a non-disclosure. That's the whole point of the settlement. I won't keep suing you. I won't keep making this stuff public if you give me the settlement amount that I deserve. And by the way, I support Cassie's desire for a settlement amount. That's not a diss at all. Based on what she alleged, I think she deserves something. But regardless of that, the point is, Cassie settled. Nobody settles without a non-disclosure. Who settles and can still go out and publicly and say everything? if that were the case, he wouldn't settle, because she would go out and still tell everything, still write a tell-all book, still give the information. Why would Diddy sign a settlement agreement that would allow her to still talk and go to the feds? Why would Cassie still go to the feds after she signs a settlement? So on its face, it doesn't make sense. But we just assume it's true. Also, what has she alleged that the feds would be interested in, right? Yes, the guy says she was, urinated upon. He says she did these disgusting things, right? And these aren't disgusting things. I'm not kink shaming or sex shaming anybody. People can do what they want with their life. Ain't my business. If you've grown, live your life. If it's consensual and you grown, live your life. Excuse me. In that context, they don't even make it clear why the feds would be. Why would the feds be interested in Diddy's sex parties? Why would the feds be interested in a celebrity sex party? But because it's so salacious, we don't bother to think through it. Okay, Kim Porter had a burner phone. Kim Porter had a secret USB drive. And before she died, even though she died suddenly, she gave it to Cassie. And then Cassie had all this evidence that Diddy somehow knew about, enough to settle, but she still goes to the feds, and the feds are still after Diddy for this? Again, I'm not saying Diddy didn't do anything wrong. I'm not defending Diddy at all. I'm simply saying this story's through line doesn't make sense. And they haven't offered one piece of evidence that, as the kids say, make it make sense. Not one shred of evidence makes this go from a ridiculous internet rumor to a plausible story. Not one thing. But again, we don't care because we just want the story. And so then they add TD Jakes to the mix.
Also told that multiple male escorts corroborated the fact that TD Jakes have slept with multiple men at Diddy's parties and abroad, and they referred to him as being a power bottom. Wow. It's also been said that a young male has acquired a lawyer to represent him, as he is set to sue Jakes for an incident that took place when he was just years old. It's been said.
I don't know what the number is when he said something years old. It cut out, the audio cuts out, as you can hear. But again, he said, I've been told. Told by who? Now, I know you can't tell the story. I know you can't give up your source. But again, y'all, we went for the TD Jakes part to be true about him being on the footage has to exist. For the footage to exist in these feds conversations, the feds have to be interested in it. We have no evidence of Kim Porter. We have no evidence of having these devices and this hidden footage. We have no evidence of her giving it to Cassie. We have no evidence of Cassie going to the feds. But remember, by the time this comes out on December 21st, people will say, well, we know Cassie went to the feds. We just don't know what she told them. So in each case, we think we have 90% of the information, and only the 10% is what we're questioning. We know Kim gave Cassie the footage. We just don't know what was on it. Not true. We know Cassie went to the feds. We just don't know what she told the feds. Not true. We know she told the feds about the sex stuff. We just don't know if TD Jakes was one of the people. Not true. None of it is true based on any evidence that we have. Again, could it be true? Potentially. Could it be true? It's absolutely not impossible that it's true. Again, I wasn't there. I don't know nothing about none of them. But there's absolutely no evidence. Just like I could be an arsonist, but there's no evidence that I'm an arsonist. There's no evidence that you're an arsonist. So what's driving this? A few things. One, once the Diddy story came out, social media becomes a breeding ground for clickbait. Because everybody knows if you put Diddy in the news, you're going to get 100,000 views, 50,000 views. And if you're a YouTuber, and I'm a YouTuber now, and on top of doing other kinds of platforms like actual TV and news and things like that, if you can get 50,000 views every day, you can make some real money. Most people can make a living off of that. A nice living. If you can get 50,000 views every single day, you're talking about 1.5 million views a month. You can make some decent money just off ads. And there were people who would interview Diddy's bodyguard every day. I saw that brother Gene Deal. No, I'm not shitting on Gene Deal at all. I don't know Gene, and I don't think Gene is a liar. Gene is doing interviews. Gene is out there, doing what he's doing. I don't know anything about Gene, but what I'm saying is I saw Gene Deal on a lot of interviews, and all those interviews were getting 500,000 views, 1 million views, 2 million views. Again, people were making tens of thousands of dollars a month on Diddy stories. So getting a new Diddy story is just lucrative. And then adding TD Jakes to it makes it twice as lucrative, because now you got two streams of people. You got the scurrilous, scandalous gossip blogger who likes celebrity stuff, and then you got the people, the church folk, and those folk overlap a lot. So now people are saying, okay, well, let's take this story up. And so suddenly you didn't hear the story on CNN, you didn't hear the story on MSNBC, you didn't hear the story on Fox, you didn't hear the story on any credible news outlet. Why? Because credible news outlets need sources. They need evidence. But the problem is, problem number two, because remember, problem number one was people just want gossip because it's lucrative. Problem number two is people often bypass real news, real journalism for fake journalism. And let me be clear, I'm not romanticizing or celebrating corporate media or corporate journalism. I'm not saying that CNN gets it right and the small independent news outlet gets it wrong. No, journalists can be independent. They can be citizen journalists. They can be solutions journalists. They can be private journalists. They can be all kinds of things. But the problem is they have to actually do journalism. Some go to school and have journalism degrees. Some don't. That's cool too. Again, I'm not being elitist here. I'm simply saying you got to know what you're doing. You got to follow a principle and a practice and a methodology, and they don't do that. So you got people on the internet who make money off gossip, and they don't need to have a good story. And so this sister that gets all the views, she gets it by citing a brother as if he's the news source, and the news source is also BS. So now you got two people who are almost like verifying each other with no proof or evidence. So by the time TD Jakes is trending and all the sexual allegations and all the stuff is happening, people are talking about it like it's true. So when I'm in the barbershop, which I don't know, I probably need to be there now. At least I need to brush this thing. When I'm in the barbershop and people say, yo, you heard what happened to TD Jakes? They're not saying you heard that internet rumor about TD Jakes. They're presuming that a lot of it is true. And I had to sit in the barbershop and be like, why would Cassie go to the feds? Why do you think that's true? Why do you think Kim Porter gave her a hard drive? Why do you believe any of these things, right? And then when you unpack it with people, they start to say, oh, wait, yeah, none of that has been verified. But on the internet, everything looks like a source. Every blog looks like a news outlet. Every internet commentary looks like a news reporter, an anchor. And so we don't have sometimes the critical media literacy to realize that what we thought was true might not actually be true. And so we end up telling stories and spreading lies, spreading misinformation, spreading disinformation, spreading undeveloped information. Again, I'm going to say it for the 15th time, and I'm going to say it till I get blue in the face. I don't know what TD Jakes has done in his life and what he hasn't done. I have no idea. My point here isn't to say, look, y'all lied on TD Jakes. Although the evidence looks really shaky right now. I have no idea. If evidence comes out, I'll look at it. But as of now, there's no evidence of any of it. But then there's the third piece of it, which y'all don't want to name sometimes, but it's the homophobia of it. People were obsessed with the Diddy story because there were allegations of homosexuality, queerness, same-sex practices. All of it became part of the story. And so then people wanted to hear that story. People wanted to know that story because people love, as much as homophobic as y'all are, and some of y'all dudes out there that just hate queer stuff and hate gay people and all that stuff, y'all damn sure love to talk about it. And y'all love to blog about it. And y'all love to ask questions about it. And so the idea that there was maybe a potential queer story made the Diddy thing go even longer. And so then y'all would take every picture y'all had with him. Y'all would take every story of Diddy and TD Jakes, whether it was a family photo, whether it was a a photo of them hanging out, whether it was, it could be anything, right? You know, this is a photo of him at the church that we're looking at right now. But it didn't matter. Y'all didn't care because all it did was tie in a story that y'all already wanted to believe. And because y'all already wanted to believe it, any bit of evidence that substantiates it makes it true. And then TD Jakes has to stand up and say, look, I didn't do this, or I did do this, or whatever, right? And of course, TD Jakes at some point comes to the church. He gives a statement. I know who I am. He says, I didn't do this. You know, he gave a more, I would say, elaborate response to his spokespeople, but he gave a response saying, look, y'all, this ain't true. This isn't what happened. This isn't what I did. He even kind of made a joke about saying, look, I'm 60-something. I can't do this. Even if I wanted to, even if I was on that type time, I couldn't do it, right? So all of this becomes part of the Diddy story. All of it. Why does it become part of the Diddy story? Because people want to make money. People want to spread gossip. We don't understand the internet very well. We don't understand journalism very well on the internet. And people are deeply homophobic, but yet also obsessed with sexuality. People want a good sex scandal. And so with all that happening, facts be damned. Now, you might be asking why I care about this. Well, I've been fascinated by this story because I'm fascinated by how much misinformation goes out into the world. The same way this story gets spread, that's how lies about COVID get spread. That's how lies about the vaccine get spread. That's how lies about how COVID spread goes out. That's how lies about whether formerly incarcerated people can vote or not. Do you know how many fake memes and fake news reports are telling people they can't vote when they get out of prison? It turns out in a lot of these states, most of these states, you can vote when you get out of prison with a felony. But because of this fake news and fake journalism, people who could be voting to change their world are sitting at home thinking they can't because that's what they were told on the news. So whether it's lies about history, you got white folk running around thinking critical race theory is destroying the world. You got people out here thinking that schools are indoctrinating people by teaching first graders how to be gay. You got, I mean, there's just so much BS out here. So many lies, so much misinformation, but we don't get to think about any of it because it's presented as a matter of fact truth. It is presented as something that is incontrovertible. And when that happens, again, we don't ask, is it true? We ask, what do we do with this truth? But the problem is this truth is actually a lie. Or at least it isn't proven. And so the Diddy story, the TD Jakes story is not just a story about, one piece of misinformation. It's a window into how unprepared we are to consume information in the 21st century, how ill-equipped we are to analyze data, to analyze journalism, to unpack evidence. We got to do better, y'all. Again, the TD Jakes thing will be what it is. We'll find out the truth about everything. Truth has a way of emerging out of nowhere. We'll know what the truth is. As TD Jakes said, I know who I am, so we'll find out who he is. I pray and hope that these are just vicious lies and that he is the man that I've always understood him to be and known him to be. I pray that that is the truth. And I hope that that's the truth. But whatever the answer is, let the truth come out. But we can't continue to believe these lies. That means we need critical media literacy. We need critical media education. We need to teach ourselves and our children and our peers and our mentees and our mentors how to consume knowledge so that when they see a hospital get bombed in the Middle East and they say, well, there were terrorists in there, we can say, well, were there? Where's the proof of that? Again, we need to ask different questions. We need to not just believe things on their face. That's what we're here for. And this TD Jakes story is evidence of that. Anyway, y'all, I want to thank y'all for watching. Hit the like button if you feel what I'm talking about. Hit the subscribe buttons. A lot of y'all are new to this channel. Make sure you join the channel, or at least subscribe to the channel. But if you are so inclined, you're welcome to join the channel by becoming an official Marc Lamont Hill official subscriber. You can also go straight to our Cash App. We get all of the proceeds that way to build this platform of critical analysis, of courageous truth-telling, of radical political education. I want to do all of that here, and we do it with your help. So thank you for your support, and I'll see you soon. Peace.